Okay, first off, we're going to do a football cookie. And I made this little stencil just real briefly. It's a little bit off on the lines, but I'll make the adjustment as I go. But I like to take a yellow food marker. That way, you know, if it was black or brown, it's not going to bleed through the icing as it dries. Not that it necessarily will, but sometimes it could. So I'm going to just outline the stripes, the white stripes, and I'm going to keep it with the thinner width instead of this thicker. So I'm just going to adjust that here. Just bring it on down like so. Okay. And this is about a 3-inch cookie, and this is my favorite football cookie I have, and it seriously is just the cheap Walmart one. I think it has the best shape. I like the chubbiness of it. Okay, we're going to take 2 browns. I'm doing this for a cookie class, so I'm going to go with 2 bags of the consistencies. The small bag is the outline, and then this is the thinner consistency, which is the flood. Okay, so we're going to go with the outline first, naturally. Let's do this in front of the camera. So you're just going to want to take just the very, very tip of that off. And sometimes it helps if you go back on the scissors more instead of the front. The front seems to want to kind of push the bag out, right? So we're going to go back on the scissors, just like that. Okay, and make sure that little plastic thing doesn't go on your cookie. Cover it up. And that's going to be pretty ideal there. Okay. Now we're just going to touch the cookie, pull up, and just follow that line we just made. You're not going to want to go this way with it because that's going to be white. Touch the cookie, pull up, just gently squeeze, not very hard. Stop squeezing when you get near the end. You can do that on both sides. Touch the cookie, pull up, follow that line, stop squeezing near the end, and one more time. And now we can outline where it's going to be brown. And there are 2 ways to do this. I personally, what I would normally do is just make a line straight across on both the ends and the middle to give it that separation kind of depth. But since this is a kind of a beginner's cookie class, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to outline the whole thing and flood the whole thing at once. Okay. It's just easier to do for the ones that are not familiar with decorating. And then we can always decorate it up a little bit once it's done. I always draw that line after it's done. Okay, there's the outline. And now we're going to take the flood icing. And this is about a 12-second. Now we're going to make this hole, where you can see it better, we're going to want to make this hole considerably larger. You don't want to get too large or it'll just bulk up on the cookie and you'll have to just spread it around and it could be awkward. But if you can see that, just, you know, about so much like that is good. And it's just a matter of filling in that outline there. Pretty simple. And your most important tool in decorating while you're decorating is your cookie scribe. I have a stainless steel one that I use with every order, and it's just a no fuss, no muss scribe. And I like to just move the icing clear to the edge. You see how it's kind of catching that end of the scribe, and that's going to cover up your uneven areas like this, this here, where it kind of bubbles up a little bit when you stop. That's going to cover it up. Okay, so we're going to do the other side. And I like to catch it clear right on top of that. Kind of like I'm outlining again, but with this, and you'll see it just kind of falls inside of that. That way you're not going to have a really protruding outline that they're going to see in between the icing colors. There we go. And the middle. Just follow that outline. Not right on top of it, but just hunkered clear up to it. Okay. Some people like to start at the center first. That's awkward for me, but everyone has their own way. Do what is most comfortable for you. And then in the bigger areas like this, just kind of jiggle it around. I call tickling it around. Okay. And I like to stick my scribe right into the cookie, not clear down, but partially. And that helps to shake it down so that you don't have any, lumps and bumps. Okay, we're going to put this aside and work on another cookie, and I have 6 cookies to do, and then I'm going to put this in the dehydrator, let it go 15 minutes, and we can finish up on the white stripes at that point. We're going to finish up the football, and again you have the outline and the flood, and usually I would just do the flood consistency in there, but if you are a beginner, you might want to go ahead and take the outline, because since it's thick enough, it will keep that icing on the football, and just put your little lines there. If you don't do this, you got to be really careful, because the flood will just run out of here and onto your surface. So you can do that, and then take your flood, and this is pretty easy to do here. Just aim to get it in the middle of that brown, right here. Aim to, with your tip, to just do that right there, and it should kind of flow if you have a nice flow on your icing, and then just kind of match it up with that thicker icing there. Our faithful scribes. There we go, like that. Then you can take the outline, thicker, and go ahead and make your line on top for the threads. And we're going to put 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. There we go. And you can do all kinds of things at this point. What I was talking about before. Take your outline, and you can just it's not going to be quite in half, because the threads, if the threads are here, you don't want to do it in half, you want to do it below, right? It's about like that. Yeah, kind of match up to that other one. Didn't quite match up, did it? It's okay. We can just take it off a little bit there. match it up a little better there. There. Okay. There we go. And you can do, oh, add some dots here to give it a little bit of character. How about that? Okay, so I have the cookies in the food dehydrator and they're crusting over now. I will be making for this class lightning bolts, and they can go on either the stars or like the jersey, whatever they want to put them on. Also, the footballs, the royal icing transfer templates are in my shop Gotta Haves if you are interested in going and checking those out. And so these are 1 inch high. I think you can get that in there for the footballs, and actually the lightning bolts as well. So go over and grab yours if you're interested. We're going to go ahead and start doing a couple of these if you're not familiar with them, so I can show you. And I'll probably do a sample sheet for my class to hand out as well for free gifts. Okay, before we begin this, I meant to mention too that on these tipless bags, they're just a cheap version, but I really like them, but they have this seam. So when you're piping without a coupler and tip, it's always best to turn that seam down so that when you're piping, the icing will, it will cover itself, so you won't have that sharp seam sticking up, okay? So we'll go ahead and do the footballs for that class. You can do this one of two ways. I am taking this outline royal icing consistency. You want to stay close to the template, and you can either use the flood, which is a thinner consistency, and put it on the inside, or you can continue taking this as long as it isn't, and that's what I'm going to choose to do here. It's not quite flood, but it will still, it being such a small area, it will go down on itself. And you can then take your scribe and just settle it down. Royal icing consistencies, you're going to take the time to pipe it, but then, boy, when your cookies are done and these are dry, all you have to do is just pop them off and put them on your cookie instead of taking the time later to pipe it out on the cookie. I find them to be quite relaxing. It's just kind of like a kid with a color book. You're tracing it over the image. And like I said, you always want to keep your tip clean so it's not balling up. So what I do, I'll just take my fingers, pinch the end of it as I go. You can always wash your hands, of course, afterwards, but it's the easiest for me. You can take a wet paper towel and keep it at your side to do that too. After these are good and crusted over, then I can take and add in the little white stripes to them. What I do with my royal icing, and I don't know why I've never heard anybody else do this because it's just so perfect, but just to take and when these are all done, however many you're going to do, just take and pop them in the food dehydrator if you have it. I just take that inside sheet out that I'm tracing over, keep it on this sheet protector. Sheet protectors is what I use. Some people use parchment or wax paper. I like these so well. But then I'll just take and put them on a food dehydrator rack. I use Teflon sheets on my food dehydrator racks, but I will go ahead and take those sheets off, the Teflon sheets off. And then I'll just place this plastic sheet protector. I'll place it on that rack in the dehydrator on high. Mine is 95 degrees, Oh, excuse me, that's not on high. But it's on the high setting, and for 1 hour, I'll take them out, let them come to room temperature, and they are usually ready. It will depend on how thick your royal icing is. These might take a little bit more time, but not terribly, but it sure is nice when you're, like if you have humidity and they just won't dry. The food dehydrator will take care of that for you. I've never tried it, but I would assume you could put them into a warm oven. Not on, but like warm the oven up on low is what I would try to do. And then you can just pop them in there, shut the oven off and pop them in there for, whatever, like even overnight, but not have the oven on. Just a warm oven, because royal icing loves heat, dry heat. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do with the footballs for now. Like I said, we'll dry those, crust them over good, and then add the white stripes to them. Next off, we're going to take and do the lightning bolts. And you want to just put them just like you do, like outlining a cookie. Just clip that very thin, not thin, very, very tip of it off. And just start tracing. The thing about the transfer sheets is, yeah, I could easily enough pipe them without a transfer, but then they're not going to be exact. And I like to have my cookies perfect as possible. So I know as long as I'm doing this with a template, they're going to be pretty doggone good. This is another way you could do it. Is like I had mentioned with the footballs, you can outline like I'm doing, keeping it low, your tip low to the template, and then you can take, well, I'll wait for a minute, but then you can take your other flood icing, the thinner icing, and go in and fill those in. I'll show that in just a minute. Let it set up just briefly so it doesn't go outside of those lines. And you can always pipe more transfers. Like for instance, this sheet will hold 36. Well, I don't need 36. For instance, if I didn't, I don't need 36. But I'll go ahead and type it the whole sheet, usually on something that I'm maybe needing a dozen on or something. And that way I always have some extra, and I can put them in a really good airtight container. Make sure it's real airtight. And they will last, seems like forever. Certainly they'll last a year, and they'll be fine unless they draw moisture. You'll know they draw moisture because they will get, well, actually moldy. You'll start seeing some green fuzz on them. So, yeah, make sure it's always airtight. You also want to pipe extra anyway, because these little things are so delicate. And even though my trick is the dehydrator and drying them, and you don't even peel them, you just pull up on them and they come right off. It seems like you're always going to have a breakage on them, and you just to make sure that you have plenty when you're doing them on cookies, just make sure you do a couple extra just in case of breakage. Now, honestly, since I've been using the dehydrator, I do not have that problem. I don't know when the last time is that I actually broke a transfer. Okay, those first ones are set up now. We'll go ahead and fill them in with the flood icing, okay? I only do this so it doesn't go outside the lines. And you can do a couple of them before you pick up the scribe to settle it. Wouldn't do too many or else they're not going to, you know, that it'll start drying. Oops, that's some brown icing there. Smear it around, clear to the edges. These are really, really addictive to me. I really enjoy doing these. No fuss, no muss. You could also take, after you're done, I'm not doing it with these just because it's a football theme, but you could, after they're dry, take and spray them with like a luster dust or glitter or something. Pearl dust. You can take your airbrush if you have one and just spray it down with the pearl dust, and oh, that's really pretty. Silver too, gold even. But they're really neat to keep on hand. Endless shapes too. There's just so many shapes you can use with these. If you go over to Shop Gotta Haves, you'll see that I have a lot of royal icing transfers, the templates, and I'm always making more. They help you if you're doing an order to be, like I kind of mentioned, to give you an upper hand on it, save you some time in the end. Also, another really good thing about the transfers is that you don't have to worry about color bleed. Once your cookie's dry, the icing is dry, actually dry, you can just pop them on the cookie. Like if this is white and you're putting them on red, you're not going to have color bleed as long as they're both dry. So I'll stop there with these, and I'll go ahead and pipe the rest of the sheets on the footballs and these, and then I'll put them in the dehydrator and we'll get started back on the cookies.